Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Passing Away of Bhishmadev, text number 24. Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavad Idam Hinam Yaham Prasana Asaruna Lochanalasan Mukhambujo Dhyana Pataschatur Bhujam Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yadvad Idam Ninom Yaham Prasana Hasaruna Lochanol Yasan Hukambujo Dhyana Pataschatur Bhuja Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavad Idam Ninom Yaham Prasana Hasaruna Lochanalasan Mukhambujo Dhyana Pataschatur Bhuja Sa He Deva Deva, the Supreme Lord of the Lords, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Pratikshatam, my kindly wait, Kalevaram, body, Yavat, as long as, Idam, this material body, Hinomi, may quit, Aham, I, Prasanna, cheerful, Hasa, smiling, Arunalochana, eyes red like the morning sun, Ulasat, beautifully decorated, Mukha Ambuja, the lotus flower of his face, Dhyana Pata, in the path of my meditation, Chatur Bhuja, the four-handed form of Narayan, the worshipful deity of Bhishmadev. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, who is four-handed and beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling. Kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Please repeat. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling. Kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Purport. Bhishmadev knew well that Lord Krishna is the original Narayana. His worshipful deity was four-handed Narayana. But he knew that four-handed Narayana is the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Indirectly, he desired Lord Sri Krishna, to manifest himself in his four-handed feature of Narayana. A Vaishnava is always humble in his behavior. Although it was 10% certain that Bhishmadev was approaching Vaikuntha Dhamma just after leaving his material body, still as a humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord, for after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotee entrance into his abode. Here Bhishmadev says, as long as I do not quit this body. This means that the great general would quit the body by his own will. He was not being forced by the laws of nature. He was so powerful that he could stay in his body as long as he desired. He got this benediction from his father. He desired that the Lord stay before him in his four-handed Narayan feature so that he might concentrate upon him and thus be entranced in that meditation. Then his mind might be sanctified with thinking of the Lord. Thus he did not mind wherever he might go. Pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. Regardless, Bhishmadev wanted this much only, and thus that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord, and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. So the text again. Sadeva Deva Bhagavan Pratikshitam Kalevaram Yadvad Idam Ninom Yaham Prasana Hasaruna Lochanalyasan Mukam Bujo Dhyana Pataschator Buja. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at the moment when I quit this material body. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Sadarne. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us the process by which we can become Krishna conscious. And he says that at the end of the second chapter, Apuryamana Machala Pratishtam Samudram Apa Pravishanti Yadvat Tadvat Kama Pravishate Sarve Sashantim Apnoti Nakama Kami. Person is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers flowing into the ocean, which is always being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Then he says, Vihaya kama yak sarvam pumam charti nispriha nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adagachati. Vihaya means to give up. Vihaya kama, lust or material desire. Vihaya kama yak sarvam, all material desire. Pumams charati nispriha. Nispriha means to be without any aspiration, without any hankering. Nispriha, who gives up all desires for sense gratification. And Nirahankara, who's devoid of false ego. He alone can attain real peace. Vihaya kama yak sarvam, pumams charati nispriha, nirmamo, sense of proprietorship. Nothing is mine. Nirmamo, nirahankara, sashantim adhigachati. So, Brahman realization depends upon giving up our attachment to material consciousness, of which sense gratification, material desires, sense of proprietorship, false ego, this is the path of peace. And it all begins with ignorance. Therefore, as Krishna said in the previous verse, the majority of people are in ignorance. Yani sha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami tasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashuto mune. What is night for all sentient beings is a time of awakening for the self-control. And what is night for the introspective sage is a night for all sentient beings. In other words, most of the people are absorbed in desires for sense gratification. And not only that, kama, nispriha, and nirmamo, ahankara, they're absorbed in material consciousness of these following. When these thoughts go through their mind, it's not a question of giving it up. The question is, which is the priority? In the mode of ignorance, maybe their priority is calm, simply gratifying the senses. And in the mode of passion, one gets into nispriha and nirmamo. Namely, to try to gain material things in order to gratify one's desires. Kama means it doesn't matter what it is. Nispriha, nirmamo, one wants to select one's objects of sense gratification. There is the example of the man, he had a very chaste wife, and he was crippled. He had leprosy. But he was hankering after some beautiful prostitute. So the chaste wife was very obedient, very loyal. The man was very poor. He couldn't afford this very expensive prostitute. So she went to her, his wife went to this prostitute and became her menial servant. And finally the prostitute, recognizing that this lady wants something, so she said that actually my husband wants to meet you, but we don't have enough money, so I've come here as your servant so you can entertain him. So she said, yes, no problem. So bring your husband. So she brought her husband. And she said, well, here, let me give you something to drink. And so she gave him some water or something in a gold cup. And then she gave him some water in a brass cup. And she said, well, drink. So he drank the water, and she said, which is better? He said, both the same. So he said, she said, you have a very chaste wife. Actually, what you're looking for is the same taste. There's no difference in the taste. You're just imagining things. So then he recognized how nice his wife was, and he gave up his desire for the prostitute. So in the material world, in ignorance, because of the overwhelming asmita, false ego, we concoct ideas of what's enjoyable and what's not enjoyable, and none of it is really that enjoyable. It's just a mental concoction. So one who's able to understand things properly by either hearing or experience, then he can give up. When these desires flow through the mind, one is not attached to them, nor averse to them. One realizes this is just a product of illusion. So this is the platform of liberation. It's not the highest platform, but at least it's this beginning of human life, spiritual advancement, giving up ignorance, the ignorant conception that I'm this body, and that my duty in life is to work for my senses, and somehow or another, at a false ego, because false ego, we can give up kam, we can give up nishpriha, we can give up nirmamo, we can give up ahankara. Well, we won't give up ahankara. That's the most difficult to give up. We'll sacrifice his body as Jarasandha when he was approached by Krishna and Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima. They wanted to beg charity from Jarasandha, so Krishna didn't want to wipe out his army again. He just wanted to defeat Jarasandha. So they dressed themselves as brahmanas. And Krishna came with Bhima and Arjuna at the right time when Jarasandha, who was very dutiful to the brahmanas, he given charity at a certain time of the day. So they came and begged charity. Jarasandha noticed that they weren't exactly brahmanas because they had massive bodies, strongly built bodies, and at the same time they had marks on their shoulders carrying bows, which brahmins usually don't do. And their voice was very deep and commanding. So he said, and then he looked at Krishna and he said, I think I've seen you somewhere before. Were you in Mathura last week? I'm sure I've seen you before. And then Krishna started to talk to Jarasandha and give him examples of persons like King, what was his name? Well, one of them was King, the one who was, anyhow, there was one king one pigeon came to seek his shelter. I think his name is Rati. What's that? Shibi. There was one, Shibi was a king, and one pigeon came to seek his shelter. And another bird, a hawk, came. So the pigeon asked the king for shelter. I guess this was a different yuga. Pigeons could talk at that yuga. And the king accepted it. But the hawk said that my food is pigeons, so you should allow me to eat my food. The king should be providing food to all the citizens, and I'm a citizen too. But the pigeon said, well, I've taken shelter of the king, so he has to protect me. So the king decided to cut his own flesh and put it on a scale to equal the weight of the pigeon, so the hawk would get some food. So he cut off his own flesh, put it on the scale, but it didn't matter how much flesh he put on the scale, the pigeon became heavier and heavier. So finally the king put himself on the scale. And then, in order to gave his whole body to feed the hawk. And then the hawk and the pigeon revealed themselves as Indra and Agni to test the king. Another was the one who, Rantidev, actually it was Rantidev, who was fasting for a whole year. I don't think he fasted the whole year. He probably wouldn't have been alive. But anyhow, he was fasting on Ekadasi or something. And then he was going to break his fast. He was very weak because he was fasting quite regularly. And they brought him this wonderful meal to break his fast, full of ghee. But at that time, some brahmanas came and said, "King, we're hungry. Please give us something to eat." So then the king gave him the meal. And then he was about to die from thirst. He was about to drink the water, and some low-class person came and asked him he said, "I'm hungry." Please, Chandala came asking for the water, and the king gave him the water. And then it was revealed, of course, as usual, that these were not ordinary persons. They were the demigods testing the king. So Krishna gave Jarasandha different examples of great personalities who would sacrifice everything in order to achieve fame, and it got immortal fame. So Jarasandha said, well, if I can sacrifice my body to get eternal fame, then I could live forever in my eternal fame. So he offered Krishna the Pandavas, he said, I'll give you my own head in charity, if that's what you want. So Krishna said, actually, we didn't come here to get anything from you. We've come here, actually, the charity, what we want is a duel. We want to fight with you. So then he revealed himself as Krishna and the Pandava Arjuna and Bhimasen. And Jarasandha said, well, Krishna, you ran away from me. You're a coward. I'm not going to fight with you. And Arjuna is younger than me. He's not an equal match. I'll fight with Bhima. So Jarasandha was willing to give up his own head in charity if he could get fame. So false ego is the hardest thing to give up. Therefore, in the process of sadhana bhakti, if it was actually followed, then at the time of initiation, it's not so much throwing grains in this fire sacrifice. Anyone could do that. Anyone could set, if that was the path of liberation, we'd be here all day throwing grains in a fire sacrifice. Wow. Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. Keep it going. No, the idea is just, we got to do something. Got to make some show of sacrifice. We're willing to offer something, at least at the beginning, even some grains in a fire sacrifice. But the real thing is that we're supposed to be offering our false ego, that now I'm going to become the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. That's what initiation is meant for. Otherwise, if one doesn't understand that, it's an exercise of just throwing things into a fire. Maybe if it's winter and it's cold in the temple, it's good to throw something into the fire to keep warm. That's the only benefit one gets. The real thing is to have the consciousness that let me give up my false ego by the process of pure devotional service. Then one will actually get some benefit, but one has to also understand what the process is and what the goal is. The goal is, as we were reading the other day in the Bhagavad Gita, which is, Krishna goes through the goal in every chapter, practically speaking, but he explains it in a different way. In that particular chapter, he states, which is coming in just the 15th verse, so it's not exactly a complete picture, but Jnanaina tutad agyanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavaj jnanam prakashiti tatparam. One, however, is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights everything in the daytime. So that could be Krishna, could be Brahman, could be Paramatma. They're all transcendental knowledge. But in order to achieve it, tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gachantya puna avritim, jnana niduta kalmasha. We have to use our intelligence. If we don't use our intelligence, we're already overwhelmed by our minds. Our minds have captured our intelligence, and therefore we don't really use we use our intelligence to satisfy our desires. Whether she loves me not, we're trying to figure it out. till finally we figure out, is it possible? She or he doesn't love me? No. She loves me. We keep on going on endlessly in our minds, thinking that somehow or another we're going to change reality if I think hard enough. The whole world, the universe will change. So no, we have to use our intelligence to absorb our minds and to see things in Krishna consciousness, not use our mind to try to figure out how we can see things in how we can change the material energy. In other words, if we have some desire and then we use our intelligence to satisfy that desire, we're just going to waste our time. But that's normal because we've been doing that since time immemorial, trying to do it. This time we think we're going to be successful, although we've never been successful. Otherwise, if we're successful, then we'd have a perfect body right now. We've spent so much time. We'd have a perfect existence. We'd be born with a golden spoon, and then simply this golden spoons would just come into our life one after another. We wouldn't have to do anything because we've perfected life. But it hasn't happened like that. We've used our intelligence so much to satisfy our desires, and it simply got us into this body. We're trying to do the same thing. It's called punak punas charvata charvananam, chewing the chewed. But this time it's going to have a different flavor. This time already we chewed it, somehow or another we're going to get that last bit of sweetness out of the dried up sugar cane. It's going to work because I'm sincere. In any case, punak punas charvata charvanana, because nate vidu swartha kitim hi Vishnu. They don't know that the goal is to obtain consciousness of Krishna. And therefore they're trying to become conscious of other things through the senses. Why? Andaya tandira pigi manas te pisha tantra urudami vara. Because we've chosen blind leaders. Our first blind leaders is usually our father and mother, which we got through our past lives. And they have a big influence on us. But generally they're more on the materialistic side, especially in Kali Yuga, than on the spiritual side. And therefore we're working so hard to follow their instructions, to follow their example, as if we're going to get any more happiness than they got. Madness is said that you keep on doing the same thing over and over again and get the same result. And you think this time I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to get a different result. This is called madness. But then everyone is crazy, so we feel comfortable in the society of all these other crazy people. It says misery loves company. I've done, as Prabhupada used to point out, the father wants his children to do the same thing he's done. Although he's miserable, he's suffering like anything, but he's thinking that still I should train my children up to suffer like I am. Carry on the family tradition of suffering. But we've been nicely trained. Everyone has been conditioned since time immemorial. We've had so many parents in the 8,400,000 species of life. And we keep on using our intelligence to satisfy our desires. But it doesn't work. We have such little intelligence. And even people with great intelligence are able to, Brahma, Krishna says Brahma is not satisfied because he has to die. And unless he's fully Krishna conscious, he doesn't even really know where he's going. But to speak of our poor little selves, with our poor little intelligence, trying to control this universe. We can't even control our minds with our intelligence. If we can't control our mind, then how can we become peaceful? And if we're not peaceful, how can we be happy? Have you ever been happy when you were not peaceful? And we want to be happy, but we just have to become convinced what is the actual path. And therefore Krishna says, Tadbuddhiyas, use our intelligence to put our minds on Krishna. And Atmanas, that's Atmanas, is the mind. Tadbuddhiyas tadnishta, then we'll develop gradually some faith in the process. That actually the real goal in life is to get out of material existence, first of all, through becoming absorbed in spiritual existence. We can't easily give up material existence in this age. Only when we become gradually absorbed in spiritual existence can gradually our material existence goes away. Then we come to the platform of Nishta. And at the platform of Nishta, then we can actually enjoy spiritual life from there on. Otherwise, it has to be an austerity. You just have to make the right decisions. Parayana, we have to take shelter of Krishna out of love. We can't take shelter of anything, really, unless we actually have confidence in it, unless we have faith in it, and it actually gives us a higher taste, a higher enjoyment. Parayana. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is parayana, is the movement of parayana, taking shelter of Krishna. Just like there's Chitraketu Maharaj, he had 10 million wives. Could you imagine if he had 10 million wives? What you would have to go through. He had 10 million wives, and he was the king of the entire, probably Bhumandala, or a good part of Bhumandala, huge kingdom. Otherwise, where would you put the 10 million wives? But none of the wives could give him any children. So you can imagine the frustration he was going through. You have 10 million wives, you want to have a child, none of them can give you a child. It's really a very disturbing situation. Somehow or another, Narada Muni came with Angira, and by their blessings, one of their wives, Kaidadu, she got a child. So everyone in the kingdom was happy. Everyone was happy, except for the 9,999,999 other wives. They were frustrated like anything. So when you get so many ladies together, frustrated, who knows what they were going to do? So he gave the little child poison. Happy birthday to you. Here, a kid. Boom, he's done. So everyone became very unhappy. They were crying and lamenting, completely distraught. Everyone in the kingdom except for the 9,999,999 other wives. They were all joyful. Finally, we killed the kid, and now we're on equal terms again with our husband. In any case, Chitraketu Maharaj, he got frustrated himself. He wandered, he took shelter of Ananta Shesha, and they gave him an airplane. He traveled around with the Gandhar. He became the king of the Gandharvas. He traveled around with the Gandharvis on a celestial airplane that went all over the universe. And one day he jokingly criticized Lord Shiva, and Parvati cursed him to become a demon. Not a very, you think, well, I imagine the karma you must have had in order to get 10 million wives. And then finally, you can't get a child. I mean, it's like, we should see what his astrological chart looks like. It must be pretty unique. And then the only child he gets dies. He takes shelter of Lord Narayan himself, Ananta Shesha. He becomes the king of the Gandharvas, and then he gets cursed by Parvati to become a demon. I mean, this is really unusual karma. But he fell down before Parvati's feet and asked for forgiveness and accepted the curse upon his head. And then Lord Shiva told Parvati, Narayana para sarge kutasana bibyati swaga apavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshanaha. So this word parayana, taking shelter of Krishna, such a situation, Chitraketu Maharaj, would only be possible if he was actually taking shelter of Krishna. If his consciousness was so absorbed in Krishna, He was unattracted, undisturbed by any material circumstance. So that's, Lord Shiva said, that is so glorious, my dear Parvati, that he's actually defeated you. You think you've cursed him, but actually he's defeated you because he's shown that he's beyond the material nature. He's beyond your influence. He's absorbed in Krishna consciousness completely. And indeed, although he became a demon, he went back to Godhead. He even preached to Lord Indra how to become a devotee. He was so advanced in devotional service. So we have to, parayana is a process. At least in the beginning, we have to recognize we have to use our intelligence to absorb our mind in Krishna consciousness. That's the difference. That's the beginning. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then our mind will absorb our intelligence, trying to fulfill our desires. Therefore, Krishna says, Yadiksha labashantu sto dvanvati to nimatsaraha samaksiraval siddhacha kripapino nabhadyate. One who's satisfied with gains of comes of its own accord, who's never satisfied. One who's satisfied with gains of comes of its own accord, who's yadricha labashantu sto, who's free from duality and does not envy, is never entangled, although he's engaged in activities. Otherwise, whatever we're doing, if we don't learn that little thing, engage our intelligence in Krishna's service by putting our mind on Krishna, and instead we allow our minds to engage our intelligence, trying to fulfill our desires, then we'll never be satisfied. And all we'll see is duality. And after duality, we'll become envious. Anything that moves will become envious of. Because the whole material world is based on enviousness because we don't agree to surrender to Krishna. So here Bhishmadev, he's one of the Mahajans. Everyone knows the 12 Mahajans? You know the 12 Mahajans? Who are they? Kapila did. We'll go through it. Swayambhur, Narada, Shambhu, Prahlada, Kapila Manu, Kumara Kapila Manu, Prahlada, Janako Bhishmo, Vayura, Vyasakir Vayam. So you left out Janaka Maharaj and Yamaraj. Did you say Yamaraj? Oh, you did. Okay. And what's that? Anyhow, so there are 12 Mahajans. Bhishmadev is one of them. So he was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Could you imagine you had arrows going through every part of your body? And you're sitting there for months waiting for the sun to come to the north? And how tolerant you must be, because you must be in a different place other than where your body is. So he was actually completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, it's guaranteed that he was going to go back to Godhead. If you could spend months sitting on a bed of arrows, you're pretty absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Especially if you're not, there's not an operation going on for months trying to take the arrows out. You're just tolerating. I mean, someone sticks us with a pin, we're in the emergency room. But to speak of an arrow. So he was completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, which is perfection. So therefore Krishna says the beginning is Vidya Vanaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Swapakiti Cha Pandita Samadarshana. At least we have to come to work on the Brahman platform. That everyone is Krishna's eternal servant, that Krishna is directing everyone. We shouldn't get upset what's going on because it's all into Krishna's hands. And if we want to influence anything that's going on, then we have to ask Krishna and then leave it up to him to find out what he'll do what he thinks is best for us. He's actually our friend, as will be said at the end of the chapter. He's the controller, he's the enjoyer, and he's our real friend. So we shouldn't get upset if by my desire, by my demand, even by my prayer, Krishna is not doing it as quickly as I think he should. So we have to become a little bit humble and realize Krishna knows what's best for us, for ourselves spiritually. He knows better than we are. And tolerate and try to fix our mind on Krishna. And then Krishna will make all the arrangements that will be beneficial for us in every respect, materially or spiritually. So I'll stop there. Any questions or comments?
Firstly, I'm Supriya. I've come from India and I'm overjoyed because traveling so many miles, I never thought I'd be able to hear the pravachan from you today. And thank you so much. And I think there are a lot of questions, but what you talked about today was again reaffirming, because last 1.5 years I spent just reading the Bhagavad Gita, and what wisdom I drew from it was that I had to unlearn everything. So it was not like a lot of people ask me by reading the Bhagavad Gita or going into the spiritual way of life, what did you gain? So my realization is, of course, my problems didn't go away. The materialistic things are still there, but I, like what you were saying, that I understood that I had to give up on anger, ignorance, ego. So I let go of, I'm still letting go of these things. I've still not perfected it because I think it's a continuous process. But the easiest way is to, when you surrender to Lord Krishna, then I think things become easier, they become clearer.
Yes, in this age it's the only method.
That's the only way.
Yeah. Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam.
Yes.
Chant the holy names.
Yes, and that's the only way.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Any questions? This is usually our moment of silence. We pray for the ones who are not here. They may come to the next class.
I have a lot of questions, but my son has to leave for his, we've just come for our son.
Yeah.
So he has to leave, so that's why we'll have to rush, but maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Because I'm very fond of asking questions.
All right. Good. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Grantarai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.